Dobry dzień and happy Easter from lovely Lviv in the west of Ukraine. So you can see here we got a picturesque scene behind us with the statue of Taras Shevchenko. You got the town hall of Lviv just there. And in today's live stream, it's Easter Sunday, so happy Easter if you're celebrating. I have my vyshyvanka on because you probably see a good few people in this traditional Ukrainian garb behind me, and especially here in Lviv, these traditions are kept alive a lot more, I think, just in general than the rest of Ukraine. It's one of the more traditional parts, we'll say, in a different sense, definitely in terms of these more, I guess, the traditional clothing and maybe music. I'm not really sure actually about music. Is it more a Lviv thing? Probably not actually the music, but definitely the food, traditional restaurants. And this is also the region where Ukrainian has been the most widely spoken. I mean, the west of Ukraine as opposed to the center and the east. And Easter Sunday is a day that is particularly celebrated in Ukraine, and in here in Lviv, people wear the traditional dress, and there were a lot of events going on, a lot of singing, people singing traditional songs. Obviously, you have religious ceremonies, a lot of people here over different churches. Today, actually, or this year, we have the Orthodox Easter on the same day as the Catholic Easter. So it's all been celebrated today. And in today's live stream, I'm going to describe my journey back to Ukraine because I haven't been in Ukraine for quite a few months. And describe the process of coming in, what it's like here. You're going to see a little bit, obviously, behind me, what's going on, and what's coming up on the channel in the next few weeks, because I am back in Ukraine for the first time. I have been covering extensively the three Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Traveled through Poland to get back here, although I didn't stop off at all. Went directly yesterday to Lviv. Came here, and in the Q&A session at the end, I will also briefly touch on a few topics that come up that are of interest to me. One of them is about learning the local language if you're moving somewhere, and there's a particular mindset of guys who write to me, a lot of other guys I've met, where they don't want to do that and they give specific reasons. So I want to actually get a little bit of feedback for you, because I will have a video on this that's being edited up at the moment, but I may actually insert an extra clip depending on the feedback and how I think about it. I may even film it today after the live stream because we've got this beautiful weather. So if you're new to this channel, my name is Conor Klein. I help high-level men with living their dream lifestyles in the region that I dub New Europe. That is the region between Germany and Russia. So we're talking about countries like here in Ukraine, although that might seem like a little bit of an oxymoron with the Russo-Ukrainian war. I had a lifestyle channel primarily based on this country up until February 2022, and the extended Russian invasion of Ukraine. We're now into over 3 years of that part of the Russo-Ukrainian war. So now I help my clients primarily with the alternatives, so been filming and going with clients a lot to countries like Moldova, Kazakhstan, Poland, the three Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and we'll probably be going at some point to Czechia and Prague. I think that's another interesting city that I should cover at some point. I'm also thinking of going to Gdansk. I have two clients who mentioned that at least they got some interest in Gdansk in the north of Poland. So other Polish cities. No one really has told me they're so interested in Krakow for some reason. It's kind of on, I have obviously limited resources myself to go and actually screen and vet all these places. So if I decide to go to, say, Krakow or Wrocław, then obviously there's an opportunity cost to camp somewhere else. So unless I see a clear demand, I normally don't go and focus on those cities, but there has been a little bit of interest in Gdansk. Also considering that, will be going back to the three Baltic states around Midsummers, maybe even before, and really looking forward to covering that on the channel. I think it's a really amazing time, spectacular scenery and vibe in the three Baltic states. So Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius are the three capitals. So my normal format is to give you a little bit of a presentation at the beginning of these live streams. If you're watching this on replay, I'll probably put in the time codes to make it a little bit easier to follow. Write your questions and comments in the comment section as I go through, and I will come to that in the Q&A session after my presentation. And if you're watching this replay, of course, you can ask questions. If, just for the housekeeping part, down below in the video description and the live stream description, just below this recording, there are a series of links. If you are planning to come here to Ukraine, support the Ukrainian people, obviously in this very tragic and difficult time, I have a guide will help you stay a little bit safer. There's a lot of logistic information there. Well, some things I'm going to cover in this live stream because I'm going to describe my journey back in, and also have a hospitality guide for my favorite cafes, lounges, all this kind of stuff, restaurants in cities like here in Lviv, in lovely Lviv, Kyiv, Odesa, Chernivtsi, and Uzhhorod. Those are cities that are away from the front lines and a bit safer than being in a place like St. Mykolaiv or obviously Kherson or somewhere like Kharkiv, which I don't cover in that guide, but those 5 cities are there, so you can go and grab that down below. And if you are interested in the other countries that I cover, because I live my in-person experience with my clients in, actually primarily it's been in Tallinn and Riga in the last 6 months or so. Did have clients come here with me to Ukraine as well. It's obviously a different format because we got the Russo-Ukrainian war. There is a curfew from midnight to 5 a.m. in most of Ukraine. The exception is Zakarpatskaya Oblast, where Uzhhorod. I have a vlog about that. If it's not down below in the video description, I'll try to remember to put it in afterwards, but you can find it on the channel. My vlog is from maybe about 6-7 months ago. You can see when I was there for my birthday back in September. And as a result, we have I do help some clients who are coming back. Normally these are guys who have Ukrainian wives or fiancés, girlfriends, who are looking at getting visas, buying real estate here in spite of the Russo-Ukrainian war. And otherwise, I'm helping guys with living their dream lifestyle in places like Tallinn, Riga, Vilnius, Warsaw, Chisinau, Almaty, and Astana in Kazakhstan. There is an application form down below in the description as well, which you should go and fill out if you've never filled it out before, because I will personally read the application, and if it's a good fit, we'll jump on a strategy call together. And even if it's not, there is a special little offer there that will be of interest to you. So go fill it out if you haven't before. And if you just want to jump on a consulting call, then there's also links to that down below. My consulting services for relocating, living your dream lifestyle. It doesn't just encompass dating, which was probably the main focus of this channel maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It also deals with things like visas, potential citizenship. I will be going to Chisinau, Moldova to help a client actually file the application for citizenship by descent pretty soon. I actually thought I'd be doing it now, but still waiting on the final document. It'll be done pretty soon. And culture integration, and obviously creating a social network, a social circle of high value in whichever city you're planning to move to. This is critical for guys who want to be successful with spending part of the year in a city. Going there and just expat group, we'll call them expat, but a lot of them are just immigrants who are not really particularly integrated, don't really, a lot of them are travelers. There's nothing wrong with that being a digital nomad and stuff, but they don't really hang out in the elite social circles of the city with the local people who are the high flyers and stuff like that. And for my clients in general, that's the milieu that they want to be in, so they can have more business opportunities and in general live a higher quality of life. And of course they will, just as by virtue of that, do better on the dating scene as well. So those are the things that help my clients. But all those links are down below, so keep your comments and your questions in the comment section while I go through it. So from here, obviously we got this beautiful backdrop. Taras Shevchenko is the national poet of Ukraine. Just put that guy there. And this city, he wasn't from here in Lviv, he's from central Ukraine. I remember my history correctly. But this city is known as probably for the old world architecture. So it's kind of Central European. The city was in the Habsburg Empire, so Austro-Hungarian Empire at one point. It was also part of Poland at one point. So you'll see a lot of architectural legacy from those eras. And it was also part of the Soviet Union when it was annexed into the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic and then independent Ukraine. So you just have a lot of different architectural styles from different eras. Beautiful city. It's relatively undamaged, unlike a lot of the region in World War II obviously got destroyed. And here in Lviv, it's pretty well preserved. I would say maybe the best preserved city for this kind of stuff in Ukraine. And as I said, it's known as kind of the more traditional cultural center of Ukraine. And there's another city called Chernovtsi, which I think is pretty similar, but just half the size. So, and this one is close to the Polish border, so a lot more accessible, and it's a lot more popular for that reason. So I have been in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and briefly in Poland for more or less, I think, the last 6 months. And yesterday I traveled from Vilnius, capital Lithuania, took a bus that went through Poland and down here to Lviv. You cannot fly to Ukraine. I'll go through all the basic stuff just in case maybe you're unaware of it. Sometimes I get these questions, so it's pretty easy. You could also just Google it or put it into ChatGPT, to be frank, it will tell you. But I'll describe it very briefly. So yes, you can come to Ukraine if you have a passport with a citizenship that allows visa-free to Ukraine. So you can come without a visa. So countries like the US are visa-free, Britain is visa-free, the EU countries are visa-free. Most of Latin America is visa-free, if I remember correctly. There's 1 or 2 countries that you need a visa, but mainly that's visa-free. A lot of other places like Singapore is going to be visa-free, and Australia, New Zealand. Don't think I really have clients coming from anywhere else, but some countries need visas. You just need to double check that if you have a citizenship that maybe is a little less well known for its ability to travel visa-free. So you're allowed to stay for 90 days every 180. So that's a rolling 90 days. So in the last 180 days, if you haven't been here for more than 90, you can enter. So, well, presuming if you need this information, you haven't been here. And you do not need anything else. Basically, that's it. You just need to get to the border. You cannot fly. There are no commercial flights into Ukraine. This is a country that is in the midst of the biggest war since World War II in Europe. There's probably, at this point, over 1 million people, civilians and combatants, who have been either killed or badly injured or missing. It's wreaked devastation across Ukraine and a little bit in Russia, with Ukrainian strikes on different military targets and energy targets like the refineries and stuff in Russia. Cities that are very badly damaged are more in the east of the country, but here in Lviv, thankfully, whilst there is some damage, it's not to the same extent. In the east, you have cities that are, Mariupol was basically sacked by the Russian army at the beginning of 2022. They destroyed much of it. Everywhere that I actually have been filming a few months before, and I never got to go back. I decided not to go back. I could have gone back just a week or two before the invasion, but it was a different season. I think it fit, and I was also worried about maybe getting trapped in a circle there. And although I think in hindsight I would have gotten out, rather not have tested that. So, but everywhere that I filmed, everywhere I stayed, was completely destroyed by the Russians. Cities like you probably heard things like Bakhmut, which are small in the east of Ukraine, and there's small places like Chasiv Yar, or let me see, is there anywhere else that's bigger that's been completely razed to the ground? I think they're the main ones. I'm just trying to think. Adivka, but we probably weren't going to go to those places. They are completely razed. They've been destroyed, and basically around the line of contact where there's heavy fighting, things get absolutely obliterated in the fighting. But in cities like Lviv, or if you're in Kiev, Odesa, Chernovtsi, where else? Uzhhorod. Maybe if you went to a city in the center, like even further out, like Poltava, things you just basically have a risk of a Russian rocket or a drone, a kamikaze drone, striking where you are in the city center. This does happen regularly, but statistically, the risk is low as long as you're not in the city near the front line, like Kherson, for example. That is being attacked in a terroristic fashion by the Russians almost on a daily basis. So here you normally have air alerts. There's an app you can use, and basically that's the main risk. You do have curfew from midnight until 5 a.m., so you're not allowed to be out on the streets. It is a little bit more accommodating in a city like Lviv. And yesterday I actually arrived at 2 a.m. and it was not a problem to get to the city center and stuff like that. So that's not the same when I was in Odesa, or I'm not sure about Kiev at the moment, if that's possible. I'll have to check that once I get back to Kiev. But you can arrive after midnight here, and it won't be like you'll be stranded and you're not allowed to walk around or something. That's fine. In other cities, it's not going to be the same. So as I said, in Odesa, really, I've never been outside after midnight because there's no reason to be outside. And that's the thing. I mean, unless you're traveling, you arrive late, you're not. Everything's going to be closed, so you're probably not going to do anything outside, anyways. Your things like your cards will work. It's not a problem to change money. ATMs are here. The electricity supply seems fine at the moment. Russia was striking a lot during the winter. Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Obviously, I'll also talk a little bit maybe about Ben Rich and Bald Bankrupt. He made a video. A lot of people sent it to me during the week. But for example, in his video vlog, he went to Kharkiv after there had been a Russian terrorist attack that killed 13 children. That was kind of poignant in the video to show. It was also, I think he was there when there was the last Palm Sunday, there was an attack on the center of Sumy, which is a city closer to the Russian border. And I'm forgetting how many people were killed. It was over a dozen, right? Actually, it was 30. There were over 30 people killed, about 9 children. By ballistic missile attack. So those are some of the considerations. Again, statistically, if you come here, it's not very high on an individual basis, but you have to be aware that there is that kind of terrorist element. That's the way I describe it. And when you see the notifications on your phone, or you hear them, then you have to make a decision about what you're going to do. Many of my clients come here, just be cognizant of the risk and make your own decision. But if you are going to come, obviously, then I encourage you to support Ukraine, document it, and spend your money locally, volunteer if you can in something either humanitarian, helping the armed forces of Ukraine to defend the country. So the process of coming across, you will not be able to fly in. Most people are flying to either Warsaw, maybe they can get a flight even to Lublin. I think that is an airport in eastern Poland, or they go to, say, Budapest or Debrecen in Hungary, come across the border that way. You can go to northern Romania, or you can fly to Moldova, Chisinau. Chisinau is very close to Odesa. It's about 4 to 5 hours by bus from the airport to Ukraine, to Odesa in Ukraine. And it was pretty smooth last night. It was actually the Easter holiday, so there was almost no one at the bus station in Warsaw when we transited to. We had a half an hour stop on our way. It was very quiet. Usually that western bus station in Warsaw is packed. Very few people there. The city, Poland, looked empty. That was one of the reasons, motivations to come to Lviv yesterday. To be here for today is because Easter in Lithuania, it was clear to me already on the Friday evening. We had a nice Friday evening there, but it was already pretty emptying out the city, so it was going to be very quiet. Whilst here, you can see the traditions are pretty well maintained, and actually people are here in the city. So got to the border, they checked the passports. They actually didn't check our suitcases this time, so we were through very quickly. Normally it takes at least 2 hours minimum at the Polish-Ukrainian border. This time I think we're really only there for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. I think there's half an hour only. So got here a bit earlier than I expected, about 90 minutes earlier. And sometimes in that border you could be stopped for, once I was there for 6-7 hours, twice. So that can be a bit of a lottery. But basically you won't have much problem coming through as long as you have a valid passport. Just make sure there's enough time before it expires. It should be 3 months. I read the rules yesterday. 3 months, because I'll need to get my passport renewed soon. It's 3 months after your planned departure from the country, so I guess it has to be at least 3 months. Because, maybe they ask how long you're going to stay, but if you're staying for 2 days, then it's 32 days, or 92 days, I guess, it has to be valid for. So don't come for sure if you have less than 90 days in your passport. You may have an issue entering the country, because maybe they're going to say, hey, the risk that you spend the 90 days visa free, and then you go and you have an expired passport, and you're obviously going to be illegally, you're going to be in Ukraine without a valid travel document. It's going to be a problem. So other than that, because people ask me a lot of these basic questions, like as if they can't go to Ukraine if they're an American citizen or something, in general, you can come, you just won't be able to fly in, so you're going to have to plan your itinerary a little bit clearer, and everything else will work. Your cards, changing money, internet, connectivity seemed pretty good here in the center of Lviv. And so that's kind of the scene. So it's Easter Sunday, so that's the travel part. Russia announced a ceasefire all of a sudden yesterday for the Easter period. Not that it's, from the reports I'm able to read online, that hasn't really been the case everywhere in the country, but here in Lviv there haven't been any attacks today. Obviously arrived at 2 a.m. yesterday, so it's actually remarkably peaceful in terms of, there hasn't even been an error alert to my phone. I actually wanted to double check if is it working, or is this city hasn't been targeted, or this region so far today, but I would expect that to change again tomorrow. And well, let's see. That is the situation. As you can see, we have fantastic spring weather. So it's really a remarkable time to be here. People are eating the traditional Easter food. They're singing traditional songs. So you can't. There was actually here. I put it on my other social media earlier. There was actually some older people in Vyshyvanka, older than me at least, more the probably 60 plus, who were singing all in a group. It's quite nice, quite atmospheric. And otherwise, just there's a lot of families out walking, enjoying the Sunday vibe here during the Easter holidays. And yeah, wearing traditional clothes, and everywhere is open. So yeah, this is a really good decision, I feel, so far, to have come back to Ukraine on such a atmospheric day in such a beautiful city. And is there anything else I should comment about just the vibe today in terms of what you see? Well, I think you can see it behind me. This is kind of what it's like. And that is all I really got to say about Easter, I guess. I hope you're enjoying your Easter break and spending some time with your loved one and family. If you're celebrating, if not, have a pleasant. Hope you're enjoying a pleasant day nonetheless. But this is the vibe here in Lviv in Ukraine. So I plan to go and travel to places like Odesa, possibly to Kyiv, and then maybe other cities in the next few weeks. Let's see. I may also as I said, I need to go to Moldova at some point to process some documents for a client. But other than that, I'll probably stay until I have that done at this point, since Odessa is very close to Chisinau, and I will be filming some content, primarily for my second channel, is my geopolitics channel. So this will not be discussing geopolitics very much today, unless I get a lot of questions about it. There's a link to that second channel down below. So if you're interested in geopolitical stuff, I put that in a separate channel, and I'm growing that out. And the original idea was actually to film a lot in Ukraine, but then I spent the last few months in the 3 Baltic states, so that didn't work out like expected. But the audience has grown there, and I feel like I have a lot to contribute on that topic. But it is different from the lifestyle part, because normally I'm filming in other parts of the region, although geopolitics is a consideration if you're planning to spend a lot of time, say, in the 3 Baltic states or Poland, or buy property, and you need to factor that in, and that is a little bit relevant. But for the kind of daily updates about what's going on, it doesn't interest as many people. It's obviously a separate topic, at least from the lifestyle, so I'll put that in a separate channel, so that's down below. And yeah, let me go and just look briefly at your comments and any questions that you have, and then I will come back to some other topics that I want to discuss, especially about the language issue. Was there anything else? Yeah, I said I would discuss Ben Rich's video briefly, but let me just see. So I think that's Sam. Oh yeah, Sam has a music video, so I'll put that down below in the description also to this live stream. Go check it out. He shouted me for that. If you want to have something shouted out, you can also write me an email at connor@connorklein.com, or at the old email address connorklein@experience.com. That's also down below in the video description. Someone with the handle Discovering Europe says that they will be back in 1 month. Okay, sounds good. Happy Easter, says Josh. Hope you're having a terrific day there in Kyiv, Josh. Fyodor says, Happy Easter, Connor. The west of Ukraine looks exactly pre-2022, but when do you think the east will recover? Like Kharkiv, Okay. Well, the fighting needs to stop, and then I guess things will go back to relatively normal. That sounds like maybe a flippant answer, but what do you expect me to say? The country, I think it depends how the fighting stops. If it ends in some sort of Russian loss and Ukrainian victory, then this country will be on an accelerated path to EU membership. The world will look very different in that scenario, and the future will be very bright, I'm almost certain, for Ukraine. So things will actually thrive pretty quickly. And because a lot of other countries, like this whole region, is on an upward trajectory just in general. It's the newer members to the European Union are countries that are trying to exceed. So 3 Baltic states like Lithuania is really starting to come on, Vilnius, compared to a few years ago. a Romanian friend was actually sending me photos of new places in Bucharest. Like that city is also starting to look a lot nicer than before. I may have to consider it going there to film again. I haven't filmed Bucharest so much in the last few years. So there's some music. I'm gonna start off here behind me. But I may need to consider add that to the itinerary list. So if you're interested, write me a message as well. The Tashkent is the true center of Ukraine, says Adam. Yeah, it's definitely an iconic spot. Someone says, Johnny FD and Bald are back in Ukraine. Would you ever consider meeting them? Interesting question, Adam. Would I consider meeting them? I've met Ben Rich several times in the past. Not so sure he wants to talk to me at the moment or meet up with me. I did have some critical video reactions to him and Johnny FD at times. And yeah, I've never formally met Johnny FD, put it that way. So I'll leave it at that. William says, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes, William. And I mean, I guess would I consider meeting them? I would consider it, but it depends on like what's the whole reason to meet them. And you know, if it's film some content that's going to support Ukraine, then that's something I would be open to. Johnny's content for the last few years has dramatically improved and definitely has been of great value to Ukraine. So Ben's content, a lot less so, although this video I felt it was pretty neutral from a Ukrainian point of view. And it was good that he showed the poignant scene where the children have been murdered by the Russians in Kharkiv. I think that was an impactful scene in his video from here. And you know, it's pretty hard for people in the night of terror. They can relate to a lot more, so I think that was good. But you know, the narrative, it just felt like it was leaning, it was kind of either both siding the war. Like he kept using the word conflict when he spoke in English. When he spoke in Russian in his video, he said by now, it's a war. It's the biggest war since World War II. There's one aggressor and there's one defender. It's not rocket science, and he doesn't want to pull out that. And he had a lot of other just language that was, I felt, pretty weak. And but overall, yeah, it's not something I plan to react to, unlike his videos when he was leaving. So it was good that he showed that. I looked through the comments under his video. Move over here a little bit. And it seemed like that did have the biggest impact on people. So maybe it's good that his audience gets maybe a different perspective. And overall, I didn't think the video was detrimental to Ukraine or anything like that. So that's what I'd say about that video. Would you consider exploring Bulgaria in the future as well as the issue of Bucharest? Well, I consider it, but I didn't have good trips to Sofia the 2 times I went. Maybe the city has improved. Maybe it's somewhere I should consider. Maybe Mark, write me a message separately if you think that it is worth me going to explore and to cover in the future. I'll be interested to hear your points on that. Dan says, Dan, inverted commas, he's using a pseudonym. I know he is. Conor going native, no surprise there. Yeah, I got to deal with the points that you wrote me privately, Dan, in a second. Michael writes, hi Conor, it's nice to see people in Lviv out and about, not letting the Russian terror keeping them indoors. Yeah, it's been pretty peaceful. Fingers crossed so far that they don't target us here on this festive day. And they did last Palm Sunday in Sumy, so don't take anything for granted. So I don't want to say anything. I've already covered Ben Rich's video because someone asked me, so. Yeah, just the narratives and the language used a lot of time. Like, for example, he has an audience that I guess he's trying to appeal to that I have the feeling doesn't support Ukraine very much overall. And he kept using the Russian names for everything. It's just weird in 2025 to hear someone do that. I mean, what, he can't look up the names in Ukrainian? I don't understand that. I mean, he's been here so often, I found it a bit weird. And yeah, a lot of the other narratives and language used, it kind of echoes a lot what you hear in normally virtue signaling pro-Russian media, that they want peace and all this kind of stuff, and all the young men have died when the war has been fought by guys my age. I'm glad that things like me, like people his age and my age, and he must be pushing 50, are young men, but the reality is we're not. We're middle-aged. And And that's actually the bulk of the men who are fighting war on both sides, actually, because the population pyramid is very, very small for men between 18 to say 30 in these countries, because there were very few people born in the 1990s. And also men who are older, they have families normally, so they feel maybe more of a financial incentive to join the armed forces. They already have their progeny, their children, so that part of their life has been taken care of. So just biologically, it's a different calculation, I guess. And there are a lot more men my age who are Ukrainian than there are younger. So those are some of the things. Anyways, overall, I didn't think the video was problematic. Of course, he could have made an amazing video supporting Ukraine, exposed to his audience, and pushing through just the absolute evil that Russia conducts here on almost daily basis. There's no justification for the invasion of war that's rational. It's just imperialism. They don't want this country to be independent of Moscow, and Ukrainians don't want to with them, because basically being Russia is a bad option compared to being part of the collective West and join the European Union and having the same development as you see in Poland and the three Baltic states. Anyway, let me move past that, and I'll deal with Dan's private comments to me in a second. Hey Conor, how long did it take you to learn Russian? He's been learning for 2 years, and my language remains poor. Reality is, I learned Russian for a long time before I got it up to like high intermediate B2 level. I would say I was learning it, I mean, it probably took me 5-6 years. So I did have one client who learned it from 0 to high intermediate in about 2.5 to 3 years. So I think that's an appropriate benchmark if you want to learn Ukrainian, Russian, Polish. Actually, the three Baltic languages are about the same difficulty, so Latvian, Lithuanian, Estonian. You want to plan to commit 3 to 5 years in order to learn them, any of them, to that high intermediate where you really start to get the great value out of it. So that's what I'll say about the languages. And Michael says, I hope Johnny FD is not doing any more paid interviews on Russian TV. He's been doing some good work now, but God, is he boring? He says, Michael. Yeah, he did appear on What Was It Russia Today before the invasion, parodying their narratives. But anyways, he's not doing that for many years, so we'll move on from that. Yeah, so Dan, in inverted commas, he wrote me an interesting point. He has a friend who actually wants to come to Ukraine. His friend, let's be frank about it, isn't interested in the culture, doesn't even like people in the region, looks down at them. Thinks that they're beneath them, but he wants to date the beautiful women of the region. And yeah, long story short, he has someone who wants to bring him to kind of a private setup. It just, to me, it looks like some sort of sleazy quasi-sex tourist trip. But, you know, if they're not doing anything illegal, they're not doing anything illegal, I guess. So that's Dan's friend to frame it. And Dan sent me some comments between them, back and forth. They really have disdain for the local people. When they come here, I think, as I said, that they're superior, and the main point is that they refuse, they think it's below them to learn, like, say, the local language, whether it's here in Ukrainian, or Polish in Poland, or, say, learning, yeah, maybe Slavian for Latvia. Anyways, the local language where they're going to spend time in. And their reason for not wanting to do it is not because they think it's hard. I mean, that's obviously the main reason. It takes, as I said, 3 to 5 years. And their reason is they think that they lower their social status if they go native. That's why I wrote that comment. And that they integrate as migrants, right, to a country. It doesn't have to be Ukraine. It can also be Poland, right? Because they first went to Poland. They told me Poland's amazing. Then when they couldn't get girls there, they started complaining about them all, that they're backwards, that they basically, they're upset. This is my interpretation, that the Polish girls don't recognize their value. His friend is over 50, I think he's 53. He's in good shape physically, but yeah, he's not an oil painting, he's not Brad Pitt, let's be frank about it. And yeah, they're super needy and they have scarcity in general. That's kind of the other points. But the main thing to discuss is the language thing. So they think that if they learn, say, Polish, even if they learn to a high level, that it will lower their status, and that they should, all the local people should learn English just to talk to them because they're higher status. And they think that, and this also goes back to a point I saw on a dating channel actually, because I met by pure chance this guy called Tom Torero. It was like in 2018, just randomly in a cafe, and he claimed to me that he could speak Russian, which I don't believe he did, because He said he doesn't speak it at all because it's just easier. He can dominate the frame if you just mix all the girls speak to him in English. But the thing is, you couldn't maintain a language unless you practice it all the time. So he didn't speak to me in Russian, and I never heard him speak Russian. So I'm a bit skeptical he really spoke it that well. But that was his point, and this is what Dan here and his friend are echoing, that they feel that by just speaking in English to everybody, that they have higher status, that they're able to dominate the frame because people have to adapt to their language, and it puts them, I guess, in a superior position, and that way they will be, I guess, more successful dating. That's what they claim. So I'm interested in your comments and your points down below. I have so much data from clients, right? And my own experiences and my friends' experiences for over 10 years in this region. So let me explain. I'm going to have a video about this next week, but the first thing is, a lot of people don't speak good English in the region, so he can act pretentious all he wants and speak in English, but they're not going to be able to, he's not going to be able to communicate. So you basically have to eliminate all those girls. Their response to that was, well, those girls, they're unambitious, they describe them as peasants, that's their words, not mine, that they're low value, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, obviously, if he's never going to learn the local language, those girls they can forget about. Maybe that's, I mean, Polish level, in Poland, the level of English is quite high, so it's not going to be so many girls going to be put off by that. But say in Ukraine, it's going to be a lot. Then you've got the other point, which is like, I would call it credibility. Guys like Dan, they get labeled as sex tourists. He was personally when he hung out in Warsaw, along with his friend. And that's a box you want to avoid, whether it's justified or not, right? I don't know if it was justified in this case. So there's a lot of tourists, there are a lot of guys like that, right? They come, they're only really interested in meeting women. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's not seen as particularly high value if you can't, because it's implicit that then you can't meet women back home. That's why you're traveling to meet women. And so just when you think about it, that does imply that they're not really that high value. That's one of the problems, right? And because they lack this credibility, then they have to compensate in other ways, and apparently they've been very unsuccessful with that. So that's another issue. I mean, if you're genuinely curious and interested, it's a lot of other things are going to happen in addition to learning the language. Or you could do some substitutes. You're going to create a local social circle with local people, not necessarily other foreigners who all speak English and hang out with each other, because then you're going to be separate. And increasingly in this region, I'm going to leave Ukraine out of it, just talk about Poland, then yeah, that's not seen as high value, especially by pretty Polish girls. Very few are interesting guys like that. That's why they had a bad experience. Then the frame thing, or being able to dominate the conversation, you will have certain people, it's not just girls, also guys who maybe English language groupies. They really see this big opportunity to practice their English. Maybe they don't like their own culture very much, so they're looking to emigrate. When they see it as an opportunity, yeah, you will have a small cadre of people like that. But the thing is, there's so many guys like Dan running around and his friends that, yeah, as an individual, there's a big supply and not such a demand for it anymore. Like there was maybe 10, 15 years ago when Dan first hung out in Wrocław, he told me, and he kind of got away with that. So I'm skeptical. It will appeal. I think it's a little bit self-selecting, like because say, I mean, I've learned basic Polish, and I didn't learn the 3 Baltic languages because it's a lot of time. That's the main point I need to get to as well. Like, it's a big time commitment, so you have to be strategic. But he's talking about in principle, right? So strategic, you're going to spend a lot of time in a country. Yeah, it's kind of like a no-brainer ultimately to learn the language because it's going to just help you in lots of different ways in the country. And it's also a sign of respect to the local culture. But again, his mindset is that the people are lower here, so he wants to lord it over them, kind of. And he thinks that, for right or wrong, that will make it more successful. I just look at the evidence and no, it doesn't really work. Also because, again, it's a bit of a supply and demand. Not as many people are looking to emigrate out of, and we'll leave Ukraine aside, out of Poland and go out and live in the States. There's some, but not so many. So it might work with girls like that. We're looking like green card girls, stuff like that, yeah, I could see. Or girls that want to be part of the same social class as him, maybe only speaking English. Maybe they have the same negative feelings towards their own culture. But again, that's not very many. And there's a lot of guys to fill that need. So I just think that, and obviously if you behave like Danny's friend, then you're more likely to meet women who are open to that. Whilst if I speak in Polish all the time, or Romania, Moldova, or Ukrainian here, then obviously I don't attract those women probably so much. So anyways, write me your thoughts and your comments down below, because I'm interested to hear. It might be something I might add to my video. Dan says that he remembers when he's a kid, some girl was trying to talk in front of me in her language, and she said she would excuse over and over the pool down her pants. What are you talking about, Dan? That's very weird. Yeah, I'm not so sure about Dan's mental health here. It seems like you found someone who was maybe homeless, Dan. Yeah, so backwards. And it has it totally wrong. It's not about the language, it's about the cities being lame and lacking sophisticated global activities. Warsaw can't hold a candle to New York City. But what cities in the world can compare to New York City? New York and London are kind of in a class of their own. So if that's what appeals to you, then why would you be interested in living in Warsaw? I mean, maybe because you can't meet attractive women with good values in New York because your value is too low. Maybe, and you think that Warsaw is a substitute. But if you want the experience of living in New York, then New York and London, it's kind of like, then you got to move to New York and London. Why don't you get that in Warsaw? It doesn't make sense to me. Warsaw is 10 times nicer. You see, so Michael prefers the vibe in Warsaw, and these countries that are up and coming, it's a different mindset, a different set of opportunities. So if you get in, invest, integrate well, then you're kind of in a boat that's rising, as opposed to relatively the US is coming down. Not hating on the US, it's just relative to other countries, that gap is narrowing all the time. And yeah, if they continue with the all these tariffs and stuff, I know they're taking off again, but that isn't going to help the economy, putting it that way. Let's see, Dan says Warsaw lacks any interesting high-level people or competitive activities. All Polish stuff. Well, then you don't like Poland or Polish people. You're not interested in Poland, which is fine. Then just hang out somewhere else. I mean, it's like this guy, Dan, wants to move. I don't know. He moved to Italy and complains it's not New York City. I mean, he's like, it must be insufferable to hang out with him. Then just stick in New York. I mean, yeah, Dan says, complete a minute types ago. So basically, Dan wants to hang out with girls that really are, I don't know. He sent me a photo of one girl who's more entrepreneurial, doesn't live in her home country. She was Croatian. She lives in Berlin, and she has some startup company. She's not a supermodel or anything, let's be frank about it, Dan. But maybe she's an interesting girl to chat to. And yeah, I don't understand why you can't meet those women in New York City, right? Just hang out in New York. I mean, is that going to be that different? Maybe she's a little bit easier in the eye than most American women. Maybe a bit more pleasant or more what you're looking for, but it's a very, very, very small niche. And you could also meet them in Zagreb, but then you probably have to integrate into that society. And you're not willing to do that because you look down on the people. You think you're superior, which is, in my opinion, a bit delusional. By the way, Dan also got, I have to tell him that because you're using a pseudonym, so it's fine, but he doesn't have a visa. So he's kind of a borderline illegal migrant in Poland, and he tried to go to Germany. This is actually good information for people. America has a special agreement where you can get 90 days visa free every time you enter Poland. So, but you can't go to the rest of Schengen if you've been for 90 days in the last 180. But Dan, the boy wonder that he is, decided to go to Berlin, and he got stopped on a random check on the Polish-German border, fortunately for him, by the Polish border guards. So they made him get off the bus and wouldn't let him enter Germany because he would have been illegally in Schengen, and at that point he should have been deported, at least gotten a fine, maybe a re-entry ban for being an illegal migrant. I don't like that term because I think it's loaded and it's quite discriminating. But people like Dan, not Dan specific, people like him, they love to use it in his social milieu to hate on other people. But he is actually technically the illegal migrant. So he had to leave, and now he's hanging out in Turkey because he has no way to get a visa because he's not able to justify his value to society in Europe. And so he basically can't get to Berlin for 3 months. So I would recommend that if you're in Dan's case, to think about how you can provide real value locally so that you would actually be entitled to a visa, and how you're going to integrate into European society. But that's not Dan's. This goes back to the mindset of why they don't want to learn the language and they think they're superior, even though reality, is a bit different, in my opinion. Anyways, keep your comments coming. I'll be very interested because I am probably going to make a clip based on this. All the dances, all the elite smart girls, all leave their countries that are holding back. Well, definitely you have some that, like, I also left Ireland, and I was educated in part abroad because I thought the universities were better, and then I worked in Brussels, for example, as a lawyer at the EU institutions. That's an opportunity that wasn't available in Dublin. And so, yeah, more ambitious people like that, they were probably going to live for a while abroad. And now I don't live in that part of Europe, I live here. So it's about finding the right spot for you. And yeah, maybe he's more compatible with the kind of maybe Polish immigrant who's moved to London. But he has too much competition in London. That's Dan's problem. That's why he doesn't want to hang out there, or New York. They're not even going to probably talk to him because they have better options. But in Berlin, you thought you had a shot because you met one girl. And I don't know if you had a relationship with her or not. But yeah, you want to be part of a social class where you don't have anything to do with German society. You're going to not provide any value to that society, but you're basically going to hit on the girls who speak English and are part of the startup community. It's a lot of work, Dan. But, you know, what can I say? As long as you're not doing anything illegal, like trying to be a legal migrant, like we were, then it's fine. But if you're going to be a legal migrant when you do it, then, yeah, I can't endorse that. Conor left Ireland and went native. Well, I think I have the killer combination. That's what I described it before, because you can mix your own cultural norms that are positive, leave out the bad ones, the ones that are going to be negative, and adapt parts of the local culture that also are good for you, and then have the best of both worlds and be respectful in the society you move to as well. And I think that's the best overall strategy for quality of life, building good social connections in the region, and also for dating. Because, like, I'm not looking for this. Dan's basically looking for someone who wants to emigrate out of the region, but at the same time, I don't know, he doesn't have a visa to live in Berlin, so that's, for me, just nonsensical. Whilst I'm probably going to be more interested in someone who wants to actually stay in the region, because I'm not planning. I want to avoid green card girls, basically. Whilst Dan is kind of dependent on that to a certain extent, and his friend and those kind of girls, because that's the value that they can, I guess, offer in some way. Anyways, getting back to the language thing, maybe Dan can answer. Does he think the fact that she has to speak in English gives him an advantage? It's what? In Berlin, in that social milieu, everybody's speaking English. So Dan says that he wants the best of the West and the East in a woman. Well, this is the West, Dan, so you maybe need to upload your software. But we can say that they're a bit more classically feminine here, for sure. And he's talking about chasing women who are, I don't know, they're like more ambitious. They're not some Stepford wife. They're not some. They don't want to be a housewife. So, yeah, it's a bit confusing to me. He basically wants a woman who's good-looking and feminine. You find those women also in Western Europe and North America, a bit less, but also the women here in general are not in that way super ambitious. On average, they see the man in general as being the main breadwinner, so they're not going to become a CEO of a startup, most of them. A lot less than in Western Europe and North America. So, yeah, he's kind of looking for, I don't know, a needle in a haystack. It doesn't make any sense to me. And plus, you'd have to hang out in Western Europe or North America to find them, where he has too much competition. So, yeah, I don't know why you're here, Dan, at all. It just seems like a waste of your time. That's fine. But you come on here constantly on the live streams. But Berlin seems to be your city, so I don't know why you're even interested in Warsaw. Just seems like you're a little bit bitter because you weren't able to find what you're looking for in Warsaw. But maybe, yeah, I know the Instagram. But so what? You could make the same thing in Berlin and show drunk Germans saying the same kind of crazy stuff, or in London or New York. So, yeah, it depends what part of society you want to film. Like Ben Rich, since we're on the topic, had kind of a poverty porn kind of channel, running around, showing everything that's from the Soviet era that's poor and backward. I mean, it's entertaining, and that's why he's a big audience, and he's been very successful with that, but that's not where I hang out. So, That's it. I hang out in the nice parts, and so does he to a large extent. He just doesn't film that because it's not his shtick on YouTube. So you can pick and choose what you want to show, but Dan just is a bit of a failed case. I mean, the reason to comment to him, some people don't and shouldn't comment to him, but I think he's a cautionary tale of the kind of guy who shouldn't come to this region. He doesn't like local people. He looks down on them. He's not willing to integrate. He can't even get a visa. He's basically an illegal migrant. And he's only here because he can't find the women back home that want him. He has some financial resources, but not enough to really be even here a wealthy guy. And it's not the region for him. So yeah, he's talking about Soho House. Soho House is something that's pretty cool. I've been to it in Berlin. And yeah, it's for these kind of more local people who are more into this kind of more maybe startup cultures. That's pretty strong in the one I went to in Berlin. And yeah, a lot of foreigners who are traveling. It's a place where they can network, hang out. It's cool. That is not here in the region yet, that particular brand. It may be even something I would start, but not to attract people like Dan. That's the thing. I don't want to cater to that audience. Yeah, but I think there's a gap in the market there. So maybe if you think Soho House, Kyiv in the future, but what we'll call it Conor's Clubhouse, maybe that would be the clubhouse, Conor's Clubhouse. We got the alliteration in the kiss sounds. Yeah, maybe that's a good business idea. But then I'd have guys like Dan come and be annoying. So, and look down at everybody. Yeah, people write me private message saying I'm too kind in how I'm responding to you, Dan, but you know, I think it's an interesting conversation. So keep your comments coming, whether you think he has any good points or not. Yeah, as I said to Dan in private, I don't want to answer his messages in private. It's better here on the channel, so at least we get a reaction. Let me see how everyone said. How old is Dan? Dan is 47. He's invested, I should have said that, his and his friend invested over $200,000 in the last 18 months trying to disprove Conor's law. They paid influencers, they paid for expensive yacht trips for girls, they've done himself on a lot of looks maxing, a lot of procedures. He lost 6 months to a year looking messed up. So that he looks better now, I agree. I saw but the reality is, to a man's value, perceived value by women, what he's done cost him a lot of money, which, I mean, he could have done other things and gotten a visa probably the same amount of money, but anyways. And he looks maybe a quarter point out of 10 better in his perceived value. So it's not a game changer. He does look better, but it's not a game changer, and he hasn't gotten any value out of it from what he told me. So he's 47, he looks in his mid-40s, he's slimly built, doesn't work out, not tall, he's 174 centimeters, right? Or you 173, even shorter. It should be fine, but what else? But he gave me the reason why he doesn't want to come to the Baltics, because girls are taller there. Yeah, so that's what I'll say about his age and appearance. But he's got these, in my opinion, delusions of grandeur that, you know, he's suddenly high. He should be automatically high value. Like, I can relate to this a little bit. When I actually first came here to Lviv, I was a lawyer. I had, so we'll say, upper middle class job, profession in Western Europe. At the time in Ukraine, you needed like visas to travel more. The country was further behind economically. Obviously, we're leaving outside the fact that we have a war now and Russia's blowing up stuff, right? But we'll say compared to 2020 and 2021. And yeah, a lot of girls I meet, I didn't speak any Ukrainian, and I spoke only very limited Russian. And the level of English was lower, so it was pretty hard. And yeah, we'd see girls with guys who didn't look like they had any financial resource, very pretty girls. And I would think, okay, they need a visa at the time, they need a visa to travel. I have an upper middle class profession, and I was in okay shape, dressed fine. I didn't obviously understand social dynamics as well, right? So I didn't have any local social circle, but also I was a bit perplexed. Like, shouldn't I be considered even higher value and a big opportunity? But the reality, I learned that that's not how the value is perceived, and also the kind of girls you would attract with that will be green card girls. They're girls who want to immigrate, use the guy to get there, and be English language groupies, which is exactly what Dan is going to attract in general in this region because of his attitude, which is like obviously pretty condescending and not particularly high value in general. So yeah, but it's not the part of Europe for him, so I don't know why he still comes on these live streams. But anyways, Michael says he sounds awfully picky. Yeah, delusionally picky. That's part of the frustration I feel from him, is that he has this type of person he's trying to meet, and he's jumping through all these hoops, being basically an illegal migrant, doing these horrible procedures to his face, trying to get ahead. And I gave him the blueprint to succeed, but he doesn't want to listen to me. So they spent over 200,000 last 18 months, and 18 months of their time, trying to disprove Conor's law. Now his friend will come on what is basically a sex tourist trip to Kiev, it sounded like. So he's definitely not going to meet. I think he's doomed to fail in that as well, but you know, that's their prerogative. I certainly don't encourage that. Basically, maybe a pickup artist trip is a better way to describe what they were planning. But yeah, Dan needs a Barbie girl. I don't know. Robert says, Dan, pony up some euros and get yourself laid, dude. Bruce says, that guy sounds he's living rough. Rich hangs out with Dan, Leo and Hungary. Yeah, I don't really follow. Dan, leave Poland if you don't like it. Why be there if you look down people? Exactly, Michael. That's my whole point. Like, why come to a place where you don't like the people? But I feel that's a lot. I've also been sent threads from Reddit and other places where you have a lot of guys different to Dan. I mean, Dan is kind of a bit related, but it's guys who are only here to chase women in this region. And now they find out that their political views and their values are not compatible, or their value, and they're having a lot of problems with longer-term relationships, and they're blaming the women, of course, and the local culture. But you're in the wrong place. So, let's see. There could be room, Josh says, there could be room for lively debate in Conor's Clubhouse. Yeah. Well, that was an online version, which maybe would be of interest again to start. I don't know. If you want to see me start Conor's Clubhouse again, then I guess drop a comment. Dan says, just point out that Conor doesn't address this at all. He likes to gloss over the backwardness of this place. Yeah, Dan, this is not some backwater in terms of Poland and Warsaw. Poland is going to overtake the UK in GDP per capita in the next decade at least. It's on the cusp of overtaking the United Kingdom. And you're talking about it as super backward. Man, it's not London. But if you want London, go to London. If you want New York, go to New York. I mean, they're the two options. And you can speak in English and act all arrogant, but we all know the truth. You're too low value there. People don't want to talk to you. They don't see the value in you. And definitely the attractive women are not interesting. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming here and on this live stream. So if you want Warsaw to be London, then you would have the same chances. You probably have even less. So Michael says, once have you thrown it short for a guy? Yeah, but it's not something you can overcome. Dan says, you won't be in Cannes or in no Bald crowd and in those spots. Well, you can take a trip out to Cannes afterwards if you want to go to Cannes. Dan, you're not hanging out with Cannes or the Nobel crowd either. So, but I make a lot of contacts in this. We'll talk about the Baltics a little bit. The Baltics, I made a lot of great contacts there from this kind of more, I guess, higher part of society. And I do get invited to a lot of stuff. It just takes a while to build up. So more of that kind of content will be coming on my channel. Like I said, I've been watching Conor since 2014. Wow. Great to hear that. Someone says, what do you think about dating in Bulgaria? I'm not a fan. Michael says, Conor appreciates the cultures in Poland. You can. Yeah, I met a guy actually in Thailand who watches the channel. He said what he likes is that I'm curious about all the nuances in the culture. I invest a lot of time, and this is also key to my success in the region. Making connections, business as well as like dating and stuff like that, is because you dive deep. Like, Dan has a problem with the fact that we're Vichy Banka. I mean, why? It's nonsensical, but I want to hear the arguments. It's nonsensical to me. The young like me is wearing natives' birds feathers for sure. Conor's Clubhouse was a failure. Someone else. Well, there wasn't a huge amount of interest, so that's why I discontinued it. And I can restart it again. I just felt there weren't enough people who wanted it on a continuous basis. I think if we have a focus on achieving one goal, then I think it works a lot better. But, you know, I tested it, and Michael says, Poland has an incredible economy, it's on the upward trajectory. So, of course. I mean, but Dan looks down on them. What Dan wants is to be adored. And he was in Warsaw 13 years ago, and because he was an American, and there wasn't so much competition, and the socio-economic situation was very different, he had some extra stats, some foreigner factor, and now he doesn't have it, so that's why he's bitter and looking down the polls. He actually told me in the beginning that when he first talked to me how much he loved Poland, the Polish people. He never did. It's clear. Looks on. Dan Mihok is not about the economy, it's about the intellectual culture. It's not that balanced at all. For what you can access, Dan, as a foreigner who doesn't like the people, doesn't have much to offer the local society, doesn't speak Polish, you will never meet those people. Why would they talk to you? You have very little to offer them. And in the intellectual part of Polish society. I mean, there's definitely an intelligentsia there, but what would be the value in hanging out with you? Zero. So Dan says, Don from Los Angeles, nice shirt. Jaco Don, long time viewer of the channel. I'm interested, Conor, if you try one. Okay, hi. Maybe write me an email so I know who you are. You were using a pseudonym there. I know who Dan is in real life. I definitely was like you don't have access to the intellectual culture. Now, obviously, it's very different if you want to hang out in some sort of global English-speaking startup community. You can find that in Tallinn and Estonia. It's pretty strong. And you can also find it in Warsaw. But the reality is Dan actually is kind of, I don't see what value he even really has to offer there. Although I think the conference you went to about aging and stuff was interesting. I would go to that just because I'm interested in the topic. Chicks are good. There are plenty of intellectuals in Poland. What the hell is Dan talking about? Dan sounds so stuck up and not so intelligent as he probably thinks he is. Dan, you can reply to that. Yeah, of course there are lots of intellectuals. Why would they ever talk to a unintegrated, quasi-illegal migrant who looks down at them? Like, it's next level delusional. But he's convinced he has so much value. Maybe you can explain to them what your value is. Why would they ever want to talk to you? But yeah, it's definitely not New York or London. But guys who normally watch my content, they could just live in London. They wouldn't be watching it if that's what they really wanted to move to. They're exploring other options. And I'm not hating in those two cities either. I'm just saying it's maybe not the best fit for you. And then a city like Tallinn is going to be a better fit. It's better value for money. You don't have any of the woke nonsense. You don't have, it's a lot safer. You don't have so much petty crime. It's a lot more chilled. It's not a big city, so if you want London, 10 million people, you're not going to find it. In this region, outside of Ukraine, only Warsaw is between 2 and 3 million. Prague is a little bit smaller. And yeah, if you go to 3 Baltic states like Riga, you could say it's 1 million people, but that's pushing it in terms of population. But if you want a bigger city than that, which is what Dan seems to want in Berlin, where he can just speak in English and hang out with a very small niche, then yeah, it's not the region for you, and that's fine. They don't have a level of the major cities. If you live here, you would understand. Well, obviously, it's a more local intelligentsia. I mean, I have access to that now in the Baltic states pretty well. Getting there. Yeah, I pretty much have definitely the whole startup stuff, entertainment section of society, even a little bit in Poland. And I'm not sure when he says intelligentsia, he's talking about startup. But I mean, that's super easy to access in Tallinn. It's really easy. So I don't know, is that really intelligentsia? It's more business, international business startup community. It's not really intelligentsia or intellectual necessarily. Yeah, Happy Easter says M1. Happy Easter. So what to get over? All right, so we've given Dan his opportunity here. Let me know what you think about the language issue, because I may even film this pretty soon after this, but I don't see any great thoughts. Does it work better? I think only if you're talking to someone. It's probably self-selecting. If the person wants to immigrate, then maybe they're going to want to speak in English all the time, be more attracted to that. Someone who isn't interested in the local culture, because that means they're not going to want to live in, say, Warsaw. and they can move them to the US. But then Dan is like wandering around as quasi-illegal migrant throughout Europe. So I don't think that's going to appeal to any of these women either. But yeah, we'll see. His friend is based in New York and has a lot of financial resources. So that kind of green card girl, they would be attracted to that, possibly. But it's self-selecting. Those girls are not going to be attracted to me because then they realize, oh, he hangs out in the region. He's not planning to move back to Ireland necessarily. So yeah, that wouldn't be so appealing. So I guess it depends who you're selecting for. So maybe I at that point, or maybe I just ignore it. Given Dan too much rope already, he has shown his biases, says Wayne. Yep. I agree, but it's interesting to have a little bit more provocative debate here. So, you see behind me, it's a beautiful afternoon, early evening at this point in Lviv. If you are planning to come to Ukraine, obviously be cognizant of the risk. It's the biggest war since World War II in Europe, and yeah, Russian terrorist attacks like in Sumy last week, unfortunately, are all too frequent. Although technically there's this Easter ceasefire going on, although it's not really respected, but so far, fingers crossed, Lviv, everything has been fine. Michael says it looks like a great day in Lviv. Yeah, it's definitely phenomenal. It's such a good decision for me to come here because it would have been super quiet in Vilnius, and I don't think I would have done a live stream. Michael says Slava Ukraini, Horom Slava. Dan says the real is delusional. Dan, go back to Berlin. Oh, that's right. You don't have a visa, so you're not allowed in. Can anyone guess who Dan voted for in the U.S. elections and what his political philosophy is? Maybe write that as well. I won't say anything. But the migrant issue might give you a hint. But he has no problem with being hypocritical. And that's another thing. Maybe I should address that in a video. Like, if you're like a migrant, and I don't say that in a pejorative way, just because people like with this mentality do. Is that going to be lower or higher status? Because people try to claim they're expats in inverted commas just to claim they're higher status than immigrant. But it says immigrant on your visa. It doesn't say expat. Conor, you got trolled by Dan. He must fancy you. Yep, probably on some level. Everyone thinks that Dan is a Trump supporter. Mark says, Conor, do you think that many girls are open to the nomadic lifestyle, like living Europe part of the year, Canada part of the year, and Southeast Asia part of the year? I think that temporarily that would be attractive. Dan got very upset when someone else pointed out to him that his lifestyle is not appealing because he doesn't have a visa, he has to leave. He's just kind of picking countries randomly in terms of what he can do without getting a visa. But I think if you have it presented in a way that, yeah, I have a place in Bali, I have a place in, I don't know, Vancouver, and then a place in Warsaw, and I spend my time between the three, that sounds pretty cool. But maybe for the long term, you know, having to travel all the time, but as an experience, I think a lot of girls will be open to that. But being nomadic in general, yeah, people who do it seem to think it's kind of glamorous, but for other people it's just like wishy-washy, I think, for a lot of women. How much does my shirt cost? You like to get a Vyshyvanka? Well, I don't remember how much I paid for this Vyshyvanka. I think I paid less than 100 euros for it. I don't remember. But yeah, I bought this one in Odesa. But we can discuss it Don. I think who's been Don and Dan. Dan definitely doesn't want a Vyshyvanka. He sent me a mocking comment when he saw it on Instagram. I called Dan a digital drifter. Yes, I've forgotten that term. It's a digital nomad, but you are the digital drifter, and that is not seen as high value. And one says he's a Trump supporter, but support those policies that make sense. Level with Ostano is the cult of the methodology. So everyone is. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that ambiguous who he supports, and that's another minus if he wants to. I don't think the Croatian girl he was pursuing in Berlin shares his political beliefs either. That's going to be, and for a long-term relationship, that's a problem, right? Imagine, I think very few guys who watch my content are male feminists who want to have a relationship with radical feminists. And nothing against those people who want that. I mean, that's just finding the right match for you. So imagine that the radical feminists were the best looking. You had to put up with their mindset the whole time, and that's not what you want. Imagine how that would just drive you insane. That's basically guys like Dan. So they have no long-term plan. I think even Berlin is a mistake. But anyways, again, let me know what you think about the language issue. Wayne asks, anything happened in Odesa this week? It's quiet here in Bucharest. Not really sure, Wayne. I was doing a lot of work on videos for Vilnius in the last few days. Maybe I switched the topic a little bit to talk about the Baltic states for now, unless there's Galway people have the accent, most generic Irish accents here. This is the case as well. Yeah, I don't have a Galway accent, so people find me hard to place. Yeah, I'll have a video probably out in the next few days about Lithuania. I'd actually filmed most of it back in September. And then I just need to get some clips, but I really got them on Friday, and then I left yesterday, Saturday. But yeah, I got so much nice footage on the Friday. Cherry blossoms was just the end of that bloom for a week. And yeah, it was pretty magical. Went to a cool rooftop bar in Vilnius. It's smaller as a city compared to Tallinn and Riga. And Lithuania also has Kaunas, so they have a kind of split. And a lot of people live in the smaller towns there. Whilst in Riga, in Latvia, it's nearly half the country lives in Riga, basically. And it's a bit different in Lithuania, but yeah, I learned a lot more about Vilnius. I just need to spend more time to really to nail everything down. I think it has the weakest nightlife of the three Baltic state capitals. Definitely it's better in Riga and definitely in Tallinn than Vilnius. But during the day, oh, fantastic. I think it's the nicest atmosphere. Just that beautiful architecture, nice vibe. People are a little bit less reserved in Lithuania compared to, in my experience in Vilnius, compared to Tallinn and Riga. So really easy to meet people, guys and girls, socialize. It was pretty cool. So it left me a very good yeah, impression. I have to say on the dating element, if I look at the three Baltic state nationalities, Lithuanian, Estonian and Latvian, yeah, definitely Lithuanians, beautiful Lithuanians have always been the most interested in me for some reason. I don't know what it is. So that has been a good match for me in the past. But I've spent a lot more time in Latvia and Estonia, so you can do the math on how all that worked out. And yeah, went to, I mean, I filmed just after the Riga Fashion Week. That was a cool event that I went to that was actually invited to. Basically, well, I applied, but I went to that. That was super cool. And yeah, met a lot of interesting people in the fashion business. Overall, one was even from Odesa, and she's has a fashion magazine in the Baltics. And yeah, so going to be producing a lot more content and going back there with a client, I think in May, but I need to write him after this and see if he's still on for May. So we're going back quite quickly. I hope to get everything sorted in Moldova before I go there. And hopefully for Midsummer. So if you are interested in living an unforgettable week with me in up to a week for Midsummer in a place like Tallinn, I think we will do it in Tallinn, maybe Riga, around that time period, then apply for the in-person New Europe Experience. And yeah, you will have me as your private mentor there, and you won't be building nomads. You're going to learn absolute encyclopedia amount of stuff. You're gonna have me with you to help you set up your social circle, help you interact. Obviously, we're gonna hang out with a lot of beautiful women who are interesting in the region, and party hard is also part of it. And yeah, just have an unbelievable time. Get set up for your experience, for an even longer experience in the region. I think that's who it fits best. And yeah, it's not just that we hang out and party, we also discuss your strategy in terms of visas, citizenships, long-term, creating the right social circle, integrating culturally. You can also discuss the language part that Dan obviously failed on and continues to fail on and doesn't get the results, but that's his prerogative to mess up his life indifferently. And yeah, it's going to be amazing in the Baltic states. Really looking forward to it. Yeah, I wouldn't be there if it weren't for this war, but I think it is the best alternative. I think it's more appealing than being in Poland personally. You also get away with speaking English more in the three Baltic states because their languages are smaller than in Poland. If you're like Dan, forget it. That's why you had no chance. I mean, he made it that he had no chance. And he got labeled a sex tourist by the social circle in Warsaw, along with his friend. So Josh says there were at least a couple loud nights in Odessa for the past week. Yeah, Josh was there. Now he's in Kyiv. He met Sean Connery's stunt double from Galway. Nice. That is a nice shirt that he's on. Yeah, Vishivanka. Thoughts on Tashkent? It's a bit too conservative for me as a society in Uzbekistan. It's more liberal and open I mean, this is all relative. When I say the word liberal, people think I mean like California. No, I mean like Uzbekistan. Like in that Central Asian context. So we're starting from places more conservative, the most conservative part of the US. And yeah, I think nightlife is very weak there. I have a lawyer friend who's based between Almaty and Tashkent. He's born in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. He says it's gotten better in Tashkent, but no, compared to Almaty or Astana, no. Conor is anti-digital drifters. He calls them low value. Yeah, it's just an observation, Dan. And you are faced with that feedback from people in the region on a daily basis. So it just confirms that you're perceived as low value. And you had a big fight with an at the time, a friend of mine. That's another story. And he pointed out to you, and you had a big argument with him because you took it so personally. But he was just pointing out that you're seen as low value because of your digital drifter lifestyle. I mean, it is what it is. What do you want? We're not here to sugarcoat it for you. Cameron says, hey, Conor, what is your favorite evening spot in downtown San in Lithuania Latvia in terms of... Yeah. I guess that's on a need-to-know basis. Why would I tell you where I hang out in Riga? You'd all show up. I had an issue with that in the past. So I don't film for my favorite spots. I have a closed Instagram to a certain extent about where I hang out anymore. And I don't say. But you could buy my guide, I guess. I have it in my guide, that's true. I guess write me a message, Cameron. And Conor at ConorKlein.com. Email address down below. And yeah, I can... On that basis, I could tell you, but I'm not going to put it here on the channel because then some people may show up where I hang out. So yeah, write me there and I can shoot that off to you then. Mike said, if you are British, is it easy to settle in Poland now that they're out of the... Yeah, now you need a visa or to acquire citizenship from EU country, so it's gotten a lot harder, Michael. Since you've been following me in 2014, I don't know if we know each other. Maybe write me an email as well or a short message, Conor at ConorKlein.com. It's down below. And we can there's a way I can help you. Best city in Kazakhstan, now becoming a debate. I would always said Almaty, although my best contact there, he says he actually prefers Astana now. So I need to go back. There's a possibility I'm going back next month. Michael says Tashkent is a lot of practicing Muslims. No wonder it's more. So yeah, that's a big factor. It's mainly secular in Almaty and Astana, although that is changing a little bit. And yeah, that's not my kind of place to hang out. But if people want to hang out there, or the locals like that, that's their right to do that. But it's not so appealing to me. Shymkent, no. Been to Shymkent for an afternoon. I had a stopover there, so I spent the entire day, walked around. It felt to me like an Uzbek city in the sense that it was not super dynamic. It was very provincial, Central Asian, and I mean, it's nice for an afternoon to walk around, but yeah, I wouldn't live there personally or spend a lot of time there. But Almaty and Astana, absolutely great. Don't like Bishkek so much because it's polluted. It's really, really polluted, and it's a bit aggressive, it's a bit violent, and it's not anything like the number of nice places as Almaty. But a lot of people like Dan go there, digital drifters, because it's cheaper, it's easier without a visa, and that's where they hang out. But for me, it's not as appealing to be in Bishkek. I would rather be in Almaty or Astana, personally, in the region. I'd actually rather be in Tashkent than Bishkek. At least it's clean and safe. Although some taxi driver did try to scam Angela when we were there. Hey, he successfully scammed Angela. He basically stole the money out of her hand. Because cheat. He added a zero to the taxi fare. And yeah, there's a bit of confusion, and she'd already given him the note. And I was like, where's the change? The guy drove off. I was like, but taxi cost, it was like something like it should have cost 20, and like he took 200 and just drove off. And she was like, yeah, but it said 180 or something on the thing. I was like, that's the guy bent taximeter. But you know, in the confusion, he just drove off. Did I complain on the app? I think have we done an app? I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what happened in the end. Have we been to Dushanbe? No. I will possibly go there in the next trip. I mean, I like to add in new places on these trips that I go to. Go back to my favorite places. So go back to Almaty, and then a few days in Dushanbe would be cool. Just to see it, like what I did by going to Daugavpils last time when I was in Latvia. I also went to Narva when I was in Tallinn. And I've been partying even in Kaunas. I've been in Kaunas a couple of times. But mainly I hang out in Vilnius when I'm in Lithuania. It was a good experience going to Kaunas, but yeah, compared to Vilnius, I think, for my clients, I think it's a lot more interesting, Vilnius. But I was still put Riga number 1, Tallinn number 2, and Vilnius number 3 of the 3 Baltic state capitals. And yeah, it's just a fantastic part of the world, a great alternative for lifestyle with this war here. But if you are planning to come to Ukraine again, do your best to support the country, provide, get that currency circulating in the local businesses, document it, so keep Ukraine fresh in people's mind, show your experience. And if you want to volunteer, whether that's with humanitarian service, I know a lot of guys who watch the channel, they volunteer or they help the military with the defense in certain ways. I also have a friend who's an American who's been in the territorial defense. And also I interviewed soldiers when it fought, especially at the beginning of the war, who had previous military experience. And yeah, were in relationships with Ukrainians and then volunteered for the military for a certain time in Ukraine's hour of need, especially at the beginning of the war. So if you're doing any of those good things, then kudos to you. Is Odesa safe or did Russia take... Don, are you living in some sort of like pro-Russian information bubble? Why would... Russia is so far away, but this is a question I get from people. It like annoys me. It's like, can you look at a battle map? Stop asking me every 3 months whether Odessa has been taken over. They were off the coast in early 2022 with their Black Sea Fleet, which has now been pushed so far away, it's pretty irrelevant for now. And they were stopped at Voznesensk by the Ukrainian territorial defense of the town. And they had to retreat past Mykolaiv. Kherson was liberated, the city. They were pushed back across the Dnipro River, and they made a tiny bit of progress seizing territory in the very east of Ukraine. They managed to liberate most of Kursk Oblast that Ukraine had occupied. And at this rate, they're getting to Odessa in like 2150. I mean, they're just like, they're making no inroads. At the moment, that could change, of course, but you know why people ask me this? It's not the first person, obviously. It's like pretty regularly. So, oh, they will take over Odessa. So, with what army? They don't have an army to do that. So unless something very dynamic happens on the battlefield in Russia's favor, then what? They're going to fight their way into Odessa when the vast majority of the city hates them? Like, what? I mean, it's so far-fetched over this. Putin's strategy at this stage is accepted that he cannot, in the short run, or even medium term, actually occupy all of Ukraine and integrate it. So he's trying to gain political control. You could say he's trying to manipulate Trump into giving him political control of Ukraine, by making it ungovernable, weakening it, and we can resolve the people, and then eventually stopping its independence, ending its independence from Moscow. That's the objective, right? The strategic objective. But the chance of being successful are still pretty low, even with the U.S. probably cutting off all support of Ukraine in the next few months. I made a live stream about, maybe it was a year ago, when that aid was held up in the U.S. Congress, when I said, well, let's look at the worst case scenario. Well, I still think Ukraine will win, ultimately, but a lot more people will die and the war will go on for many years. So that's the tragic part of it. But here I am on Easter Sunday in Lviv, and it's so beautiful. Yeah, I'm pretty happy I came so far to show you how nice it looks, and how you can live a reasonably ordinary life in these strange times of the Russo-Ukrainian war. And another thing under Ben Rich's video, a lot of comments talking about, there are no young men, because this is one of the kind of, I guess, woke rights points on the war, is like that all the young men have been killed in the war, when Ukraine does not have conscription for really young men at all, and most of the men fighting are my age or basically my age. So as you can see, it's a mixture behind me, because I'm actually in a city where people, I'm far from the front line, right? So the gender balance is pretty normal here. That's another reason why Dan's friend wanted to come, because he thought there are no men. Yeah, but most of the women that would be interested in them have left and they don't live here anymore. So again, it makes no sense, but and let's stop talking about Dan. I gave him his 15 minutes of fame on the live stream. Hopefully that's enough for him, and he goes and moves to Berlin and leaves us alone. Hey Connor, how are the casinos in Ukraine? I don't gamble, so never gone in there. Not interested in promoting that. Connor, would you go to Bukhara or Samarkand restaurants in Lviv? Ah, okay. I should go there. Never been to an Uzbek restaurant here in Lviv, so I'll bear that in mind. I'll go and check them out. Is Odesa safe? I guess that was a real question, Don. Well, same risk, random risk of a Russian terrorist attack. So, had 2 close calls in Odessa. Touch wood, or fingers crossed. That's as close as they ever get to me personally. So, any final questions and thoughts? Because here we are in a beautiful Easter Sunday, early evening in Lviv. Lovely Lviv, such a beautiful city in this weather. And yeah, I've been on for almost 90 minutes. I think that was a good live stream in terms of value for you guys to see what it's like, how you can come here if you want to in 2025 and support Ukraine, support Europe in this new Cold War that we're in the midst of, and the biggest war in Europe since World War II, the Russo-Ukrainian War, which started with Russia's invasion of Crimea in 2014. And will continue in some shape or form until Russia basically faces military defeat. That can be precipitated by an economic collapse, political collapse, some sort of massive event. But until then, it's not going to stop Russia's empire. And unfortunately, until they face severe consequences for that, they're not going to change. And yeah, Ukraine stands tall and proud and resilient. I think a lot of Western Europeans and North Americans have a lot to learn from Ukrainians. Beautiful country. Hopes Ukraine will take everything back, says Don. So do I, so I can go and document it for you again. Yeah, it's very personally sad when I watch my old videos from Kherson Oblast and Zaporizhzhia Oblast, the places I went documented, never mind watching footage that I haven't published from Mariupol. But yeah, someday I'm confident I will get to go back to those places and film again. So I'm going to wrap it up there because I want to enjoy my Sunday evening in Lviv and Easter and all that good stuff. So yeah, just final close out. Links down below. And yeah, for the guide if you're going to come here, want some consulting advice, and the New Europe Experience application form is down below. I'm going to be changing the brand fully by the summer, but doing it slowly as soft rebranding, which has been going on, I guess, for over a year at this point, but we're getting there. Just slowly but surely changing all that. And someone else, what did they ask me? But it was back in the comments. If I can get it quick enough. Yeah, if you're interested in any of the guides for the other cities, like I actually have a draft one for Warsaw, one for Latvia and Lithuania, one for Kazakhstan. You can buy the one for Moldova, and it has all the hospitality guides there. So either the Ukrainian and the Moldovan one you can buy, just down below there's a link. And then if you're interested in Latvia, Lithuania, or information about Estonia, Kazakhstan, and what was the other place? Poland, Warsaw, yeah. Just write me a message, connor@connorklein.com, and I'll send you the details and we can get that organized. My email is also down below. And I will wish you a fantastic Easter Sunday, which that's quite nice. She's on the scooter and dressed in a Vyshyvanka. Quite elegant. From lovely Lviv, free Ukraine. In spite of everything that's happened, this is the 4th Easter Sunday since the 2022 Russian extended invasion. Someone asked me, when will the new guides come out? Which country specific? because the Ukrainian and the Moldovan one are just down below in the description. You can purchase those. I have draft for Warsaw, and I have a draft for Kazakhstan's already, because I wanted to complete it when I go back to Kazakhstan. But there's an early bird offer, so just write me, because if it's not finished, then there's an early bird offer, so probably good for you. In any case, Mark, Baltic and Poland. Well, I have the one for Warsaw and the Baltics. I have all the information there if it's the hospitality part. So maybe Mark, write me a message, and yeah, we can set that up this evening, even if you want access to it. So yeah, write me a message at Conor. My email address is connor@connorklein.com. It's written down below so you don't make a mistake with the spelling. My name, it has one N and two O's. And I love to claim that online I'm the world's second most famous Conor after Conor McGregor, who I'm no longer a fan of for the last 5 years, unfortunately. And he gave some interview with Tucker Carlson where, man, his speech is so slow. It's nothing like the guy a decade ago. It's I don't know if it's from the MMA and getting hit in the head or something else that he's been consuming, but it's not good when you hear that guy. Anyways, that's getting distracted about Conor McGregor. Or Conor Klein at sorryexperience.com, the old email address that works. Again, you can find that down below if you want to just copy and paste it. And any final thoughts I have? Yeah, I encourage you to come to Ukraine in 2025 if you want to come here and support the people. Not like Dan's friend, not that kind of support. And their here is to try and exploit. I doubt they will even come. Is he really that big a desperado? But it's kind of interesting that some guys are still trying to sell that as an idea, and which I think is inappropriate, in particular in this time. We got the biggest war in Europe since World War II. But as you see, it can still be a fantastic place to come to and enjoy in spite of everything. And as I said, I think it's an educational experience. Obviously, you have to be cognizant of the risk, not downplaying it. But to come here and actually see and live a little bit through it for even a few days, I think it's a big learning experience for a lot of guys to come here, and women who come here. Definitely, if you can contribute in any way, just even by spending more money in local businesses, documenting it, volunteering even better, supporting the armed forces of Ukraine better again. And yeah, I'll sign off on that. Enjoy your Easter. Slava Ukraini. Horom Slava do Peremohi, as I normally close out these videos. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes, to victory. And yeah, it's going to be some content from here, and very soon going back to Moldova for a few days, and possibly Kazakhstan, and I'm back to the 3 Baltic states via Poland. So it's going to be a lot of travel and a lot of interesting new content coming on this channel. Going to have a video about Lithuania this week. Also interviewed Yelena. We reshot the interview. One thing that came up that maybe I'll expand it maybe in another live stream is that a lot of guys who come to her have problems socializing. That's why they're actually going to a matchmaker like her. And yeah, they could, if they solve the socializing part, then they wouldn't need this. That was kind of one thing that came up for me. Maybe I'll talk about another live stream. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay strong, enjoy your Easter. Chat soon.